You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter @RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. Believe it or not, I'm actually going to start with the NBA. Haven't done that in a long time. There was a game yesterday that really caught my eye. Grizzlies Cavaliers. Two teams that stylistically are about as evenly matched as any two teams in the NBA. Jacob, what do you mean by that? I'll tell you what I mean by that. In an era where going small and shooting threes is in vogue, these two teams have gone in the complete opposite direction. Just look at their starting lineups. If you don't follow these teams, let me tell you their starting lineups. For the Grizzlies, they have Ja Morant and Desmond Bane at the 1 and the 2, respectively. That's fine. There's nothing weird about that. At the 3, they have Killian Tilly. We can argue whether or not Killian Tilly really deserves to be starting, or whether he's a good player or not, another day. The point is, he's been getting starts at the 3 recently. He's 6'9". You go on Basketball Reference, he's listed as a center. As someone who watched him play at Gonzaga, this guy never played a minute at the 3. At the 4, you have Jaren Jackson Jr., he's 6'11". And at the 5, you have Steven Adams, again, 6'11". Admittedly, the only weird part of that starting lineup is Tilly. We could all agree that Triple J is a 4, and we can all agree that Steven Adams is a 5. Tilly at the 3? That's crazy, right? That's not going to work. Well, it's kind of interesting. In the 2 games that Tilly has started at the 3, the Grizzlies have won both games. They destroyed the Nets on Monday, and they just beat the Cavs yesterday. And they're very big off the bench, too. Brandon Clark is 6'8". Jarrett Culver plays bigger than his 6'6" frame. And Santi Aldama is 6'11". This is a big Grizzlies team. Good luck penetrating. Good luck out-rebounding them. Nothing's going to come easily to you on the interior. But no team has taken, if I can coin a phrase, big ball. You've heard of small ball? This is big ball. To the nth degree more than the Cavaliers. You have Darius Garland at the 1. We can all agree that Darius Garland should be at the 1. At the 2 is Lamar Stevens. It's okay if you don't know a lot about Lamar Stevens, but I'll tell you, he's listed on Basketball Reference as a power forward. Now, he's 6'6", he's not the biggest guy in the world, but you don't think of him as a shooting guard. But he got the start there last night. Then, this is where it gets crazy. You've got Lauri Markkanen at the 3. He's 6'11". Evan Mobley at the 4. He's 6'11". He's not a good three-point shooter. He wasn't even a good three-point shooter at USC. And you've got Jared Allen at the 5. He's 6'10". He's actually shorter than Markkanen and Mobley. He's starting at the 5. This Cavaliers lineup is the craziest lineup in the NBA, yet somehow, someway, it's working for them. The Cavs are 21-17. They're the 6th seed right now. Not to be outdone, the Grizzlies are 25-14. They're the 4 seed. Let me tell you something. These two teams can pose a big issue for any team in the NBA once the playoffs get underway. Forget the regular season for a minute, okay? I just established that these teams are good regular season teams. The playoffs are a completely different ball of wax. You can be a great regular season team but fall apart in the playoffs. Case in point, the Nets last year. They were a great regular season team last year. They went 48-24. They lost in 7 games in the semifinals. They should have won games 3 and 7. But they didn't. These two teams, the Cavs and Grizzlies, are built differently. And I'm going to tell you why. Let's say you're going up against them in a 7-game series. If I'm the coach of that team, I'm not designing anything to penetrate. I mean, maybe if you run a 4-out or a 5-out, you can. But how many teams can put out lineups that have 4 or 5 shooters? Even if you have 2 of these guys hovering around the rim, you're not scoring. It's just not happening. They're too big. I don't care how great you are. Kevin Durant and James Harden struggled against this Grizzlies team on Monday. Durant was 8 for 24 from the field. Harden was 5 for 14 from the field. Those are 2 of the best players in the NBA struggling to score over these Bolvans. So, okay, we're not going to penetrate. We're just going to kill them from the perimeter. All well and good. I mean, the Grizzlies are a good perimeter defending team, but the Cavs really aren't. Let's say that's your game plan, to shoot 43s. You have any idea how hard that is to execute successfully? I just saw my team go cold against the Grizzlies. Durant, 2 for 8 from beyond the arc. Harden, 2 for 7 from beyond the arc. Patty Mills, 0 for 5 from beyond the arc. By the nature of the three-point shot, you are missing more than not. Think about it this way. The best three-point shooter in the NBA right now, according to three-point percentage, is Joe Harris. He is shooting 46.6% from beyond the arc. That is leading the NBA. Think about that number. 46.6%. That's less than half. That means that by the nature of the game plan that you will need to play to beat these teams, you are in essence conceding to missing more than half your shots. But even then, 46%, that's the elite of the elite. More players shoot under 40% from beyond the arc. That means that you're missing 6 of your 10 threes. Again, this is just the nature of percentages. And we call that good. Like, Kevin Durant is shooting 37.3% from beyond the arc. Has anyone ever said that he's a bad three-point shooter? How about a guy like LaMelo Ball? He's shooting 38.6% from beyond the arc. Has anyone once ever said he's a bad shooter? Danny Green, a really good shooter. He's shooting 38% from beyond the arc. What are the high percentage looks? The high percentage looks are the looks that are close to the basket. You can't do that against these Grizzlies and Cavs teams. So you've got to shoot from the perimeter like there's no tomorrow. If the season ends today, the Grizzlies are going up against the Nuggets in the first round. The Nuggets are not a good shooting team. That will not end well for Denver. Season ends today. The Cavs are facing the Bucks in the first round. I hope guys like Grayson Allen, Bobby Portis, and Pat Connaughton eat their Wheaties that morning. As great as Giannis is, he'd struggle against the Cavs. It's going to be up to the role players, and obviously guys like Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton to win that series. But think about it. The Cavs have in essence eliminated the Bucks' best player. Now look, Giannis will get his because he's Giannis. But I don't think he'd be the Greek freak in that series. I think he'd be very good, he wouldn't be great. I'll tell you right now, if you're looking for a dark horse team to win the finals, you could do a lot worse than saying the Cavs or Grizzlies. They are that difficult to deal with. As for the game itself yesterday, like I said, it was really competitive. The Cavs had the biggest lead of the game. They were up by 11 at one point. No one's going to point to an 11-point lead and say, yeah, that's insurmountable. Ja Morant took over late He scored 6 points in the final 30 seconds. He was the high man for the Grizzlies with 26 points. I mean, it was really fun seeing Ja Morant go up against Darius Garland. You've got two of the best point guards in the NBA going at it. That was pretty fun. I mean, it's kind of funny. Desmond Bane made an interesting comment about Morant the other day. He said that Morant is in the conversation for being the best point guard in the NBA. And look, I don't think anyone would say that Ja Morant is the best point guard in the NBA. You want to tell me Steph Curry? Fine. You want to tell me Trae Young? Fine. You want to tell me Damian Lillard? Fine. You want to tell me James Harden? I'm not mad at it. It's not Ja Morant. I'll say this, he's top 10. Nothing to be mad about there. I mean, Morant's only in his 3rd year. And I'm saying that this guy is one of the 10 best point guards in the NBA. In fact, I'll even go a step further. If you wanted to put him in your top 5, I'd be okay with it. He's not number 1, though. He can get there. I don't think there's any question about that. Like 5 years from now, when Steph Curry gets a little older, when Damian Lillard gets a little older, I could see Ja Morant being the best point guard in the NBA. Either him or Trae Young. I could see that happening very easily. But Ja Morant is not the best point guard in the NBA. Maybe top 5. Maybe. As for the Cavs losing this game, you have nothing to be upset about. It was a hard-fought game. I mean, like I said, you're a really good team. You're without Isaac Okoro. You're without Rajon Rondo. You're without Cedi Osman. Once those guys come back, you'll be fine. You've just got to tread water until then. And I'll say this. I did not like the fit of Evan Mobley in Cleveland. I was so against it, as a matter of fact, that in the mock draft special that I did with Nick Ornberger, and I was on the clock with the 3rd overall pick, I didn't pick Mobley. I think I picked Jonathan Kuminga. I have been proven dead wrong. JB Bickerstaff has made this incredibly big lineup. A lineup that in the hands of a less talented coach wouldn't work, function like a well-oiled machine. He deserved the extension that he got. He's a really good coach. The future in Cleveland looks incredibly bright. There's no question about that. Alright, now I'll give you some college football Valk talk. I'm not going to spend too much time on this game. Kansas State won, which I said they would. The thing that really surprised me was how great Skylar Thompson was. Skylar Thompson, by far and away, was the best player on the field yesterday. And he really didn't have a good season. Yes, he completed 69.5% of his passes, but only for 2,100 yards, 12 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. There are a lot of quarterbacks you'd rather have than Skylar Thompson. I mean, I thought if the Wildcats were going to win this game, it would be because of Deuce Vaughn. And Vaughn was great. He had 21 carries for 146 yards and 3 touchdowns. But Thompson was better. He completed 75% of his passes for 259 yards and 3 touchdowns. Realistically, this game was over in the second quarter. I mean, once the Wildcats went up 21-0, you knew that this shorthanded LSU team wasn't gonna come back. I mean, it brings up an interesting question. If the Tigers were at full strength, would they have won this game? I'll say this, one thing that I didn't even know. Max Johnson had transferred to A&M. I did not know that. None of the research that I did in preparation of this game told me that. Like, the thing is, if you are in the transfer portal, you can still play in your bowl game. Having said that, if Johnson officially transferred, there's nothing that can be done. So LSU was really screwed. I can't blame Johnson for not playing, though. Because at the end of the day, when coaches leave, they don't coach their bowl games. Like, Brian Kelly didn't coach Notre Dame. Lincoln Riley didn't coach Oklahoma. So I can't blame Johnson for not playing. I'll say this, I don't like the fact that that's done. I wish coaches would stick it out until after the bowl game, but it's not done. So I don't blame players for not wanting to play if they're going to change schools. If they're going to declare for the NFL draft, you can do that afterwards. I mean, I'll say this when it comes to transferring schools for student athletes. I don't know if there are any deadlines for, like, the spring semester. Like, let's say Max Johnson needed everything into A&M by January 3rd. Just hypothetically. He can't do that if he's playing for LSU. I mean, there are other things that come into play there. So I don't begrudge Johnson for not playing in this game. I just don't like that I didn't know that he wasn't going to play in this game. Instead, Jontre Kirkland, a converted wide receiver, got the start. That did not go well. I mean, quite frankly, I'm surprised LSU put up 20 points. I'm surprised Kirkland threw 3 touchdowns. I mean, give Kirkland credit, he did the best he could, but the reality is, LSU had no chance against KSU. I knew the Wildcats were going to win this game. Alright, now I'll give you some NHL Valk talk. And I'll start with a very interesting rumor from Darren Drager of TSN. According to him, the Coyotes are seeking a Jack Eichel-like return if they're going to trade Jacob Chikrin. What's interesting to note there is that the Coyotes are at least open to trading Chikrin. They're really, really good young defensemen. In case you don't remember what the Sabres got for Eichel, they got a top 10 protected first rounder, a second rounder, Peyton Krebs, and Alex Tuck. So basically the Coyotes want a first, a notable prospect, a second, and a quality young NHLer. That may be a little excessive for Chychrun. I mean, to say that Chychrun is anywhere near the player that Eichel is just absurd. I mean, Chychrun really burst onto the scene last year when he had 41 points in 56 games. He got Norris Trophy votes. The thing is, though, you take that year out of the equation, he's never finished with more than 26 points in a season. I mean, this year he has 7 points in 26 games, and he's a minus 29. I understand that the Coyotes are garbage. I mean, they only have 2 regulars that aren't a minus. Liam O'Brien and Ryan Dzingel. But a minus 29 for a defenseman is notable. I don't care who you play for. That's something that you've got to think about if you're going to trade for this guy. I mean, Jack Eichel is a perennial point-a-game player. Chychrun isn't. I mean, I'll tell you this right now. If I was a team in buying mode and I'm looking for a lefty defenseman, I'm balking at that asking price. No. That is the last thing on earth I would give up for Chychrun. A first is fair. The second may be pushing it, but if there's a bidding war, I could see it. And maybe I'll give you a decent player. Take your pick. You can either get a decent prospect or a decent NHLer. I'm not giving you both. I'd want to buy low on Chychrun. And if that doesn't convince the Coyotes to trade him, okay. I'd rather pay a little more for him when he's righted the ship than trade for him now when he's in the midst of a bad season. No, I don't see Chychrun being moved anytime soon. Moving on now to Flames Panthers. The Panthers won 6-2. They've now won 4 straight. They are the second hottest team in the NHL behind only the Penguins. The Hurricanes also are on a 4-game winning streak, but I think the Panthers are playing better. And the Penguins have won 8 straight. I mean, they are otherworldly right now. Here's something interesting. Joe Thornton scored a goal yesterday. You may not have known that he's still playing, but he is, and he's a Panther. He has 6 points in 19 games. He has now scored a goal in every calendar year since 1997. That is insanity. To put it another way, I was born on March 18th, 1997. So for as long as I've been alive, Joe Thornton has been scoring goals in the NHL. After the game, Darryl Suter, the Flames head coach, said that the Panthers are built for playoff hockey. It's hard to really argue with that. I mean, they are cooking on all cylinders right now. They're chock full of great players. Jonathan Huberdeau, Sam Reinhart, Aaron Ekblad, Carter Verhaeghe, Anthony Duclair, Alexander Barkov, etc., etc. It would probably take me less time to tell you who's bad on the Panthers. And Sergei Bobrovsky, who I really criticized last year, is having a really good season. He's 15-3-2 with a .921 save percentage and a 2.45 GAA. Spencer Knight, who I was really high on, has struggled. So Bobrovsky has needed to carry a little more of the load than I think people thought he would. I think people thought it would be a 1A, 1B setup. No, Bobrovsky's the 1 and Knight is the 2. I'm a little concerned how he's going to do in the playoffs. That's the only thing that's standing between the Panthers and playoff success. Will Sergei Bobrovsky collapse again? He's playing great right now. This is his best season ever in a Panthers jersey. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter much if he folds in the playoffs. Moving on now to Flyers Ducks. The Ducks won 4-1, and Troy Terry was responsible for 3 of those goals. So he single-handedly outscored the Flyers. This is his first ever NHL hat trick. The first of many, I think. This guy is having a breakout season. He is leading the Ducks in goals with 21. No one else is in double digits. He is leading the Ducks in points with 34. No one else has 26. For a team that's banged up right now, to have a guy like Terry stepping up and putting the team on his back is nothing short of incredible. I mean, I'll say this. I don't look at the Ducks as a true playoff threat. The Ducks are a one-man team. It's Troy Terry and everyone else. I mean, John Gibson is having a solid season, but at the end of the day, you've still got to score if you want to win. I mean, one-man teams really don't do well in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Edmonton Oilers have struggled in the playoffs recently. They have the best player in the NHL in Connor McDavid. In fact, McDavid, in his career, has only won one playoff series. It was in 2017 against the Sharks. The Oilers won in 6 games. They then lost to the Ducks in 7 games. But if the Ducks can give him some help, if guys like Trevor Zegras, Sonny Milano, Ryan Getzlaf, and Kevin Shattenkirk can step up, maybe, just maybe, the Ducks can make a little run. I mean, Troy Terry is certainly good enough to be the best player on a playoff team. He's certainly capable of being the best player on a playoff team that makes some noise. It'll be interesting to see how the Ducks season unfolds. Alright, now I'll give you some college basketball Valk talk. And I'll start with the crazy game that was Kentucky LSU. You had a sense that LSU could win this game. The game was in Baton Rouge. They were naming the court after Dale Brown, by far and away the best coach in their history. Brown was there to give moral support. You had a sense that LSU would be really motivated to win this game. But the game unfolded very differently than I think anyone expected. Kentucky is a team that looks to play through their front court. Oscar Tshiebwe and Keon Brooks. That's not what happened. Tshiebwe and Brooks only combined for 10 points. Instead, the Wildcats were led by Kellen Grady, a guard, Davion Mintz, a bench guard, and Jacob Toppin, a bench forward. Even then, though, he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's 6'9". He's under 200 pounds. But for LSU, it was even weirder. Their best player is Darius Days. He was really bad. He shot just 3 for 11 from beyond the arc, 3 for 12 from the field. He only had 9 points. He's a forward. It was LSU's backcourt that led them to victory. Xavier Pinson had 11 points. Brandon Murray had 10 points. They got some help from Tari Eason. He's a forward. He comes off the bench. He had 13 points. And Will Wade likes having him come off the bench. He likes the flexibility that gives him. And Eason is okay with it. Like, he has no issues whatsoever in coming off the bench. Now, this game was a back-and-forth affair. LSU had the lead, but Kentucky kept it close. With under 30 seconds left to go in the game, Davion Mintz penetrates, and over 2 defenders, he lays the ball in. An incredibly tough finish. That made the score 61-60 LSU. Kentucky then fouled someone, but there were no free throws because LSU wasn't in the bonus yet. So it's side out on LSU's side of the court, 23.3 seconds left in the game. The ball gets tossed down to the other end of the court. There's a race for the ball, and Oscar Tshiebwe ends up winning it. He then attempts to pass the ball to Kellen Grady, but the pass is errant. Davion Mintz goes running for it. He tries to save it to Grady. He ends up in the first row. Grady can't corral the loose ball. And with 14 seconds left, the ball was slammed home by Tari Eason. 63-60, LSU. John Calipari doesn't call a timeout. He's going to let his guys run a play. As Mintz is dribbling the ball up court, he gets stripped by Xavier Pinson. Pinson then slams it home. And LSU won 65-60. It was a wild end. Kentucky had every opportunity to win. Calipari should have called a timeout. I hate when coaches don't do that. I like the idea of drawing up a play rather than doing something freelance. But a great job by LSU. They're a great defensive team. They are a force to be reckoned with come March. It's kind of funny. LSU last year was all offense, no defense. This year, LSU has the fourth best defense in the nation in terms of points against per game. They're only giving up 55.6 points per game. This is a Tigers team that's capable of doing very special things come March. And I'm always happy to see John Calipari lose because I hate John Calipari. Hate what he did to the Nets. Hate all the scandals. Hate the one and done that he pioneered. I hate John Calipari. There was another upset yesterday. An upset is putting it lightly. This was a rout. Providence lost to Marquette 88-56. Providence was the 16th ranked team in the nation. Marquette had lost 4 straight. And when I say this was a rout, I mean this game was over in the first half. The Golden Eagles were up by 20. I mean, these guys couldn't miss. Justin Lewis had a double-double, 23 points and 11 rebounds. Olivier Maxence Prosper had 11 points. Off the bench, Oso Ighodaro had 16 points. Cam Jones had 14 points. The Friars were absolutely inept offensively. Their best player, Nate Watson, only had 8 points. You're not going to win too many games where a guy who's averaging over 13 points per game only puts up 8. Marquette's defense was swarming. The Friars shot just 33% from the field and 26% from beyond the arc. They couldn't hit their free throws. They missed 7 of 20. I mean, give Aljami Durham credit. He had 16 points. Didn't shoot well, but hit 8 of his 9 free throws. So give him credit for that. And Ed Crosswell was solid off the bench. He had 11 points, but the big story is Marquette. And how dominant the Golden Eagles were. I mean, it's going to be tough for them to get much love from the selection committee. I mean, the Big East is really good this year. You have Providence, you have Xavier, Creighton, UConn, and Seton Hall. Marquette can sneak in, but they strike me as a bubble team, a team that may have to go through the first 4. I don't want to say it's impossible for the Golden Eagles to get into March Madness, but I wouldn't bet the rent on it. There is a game tonight that features 2 ranked teams. Number 25, Texas Tech, is going to go to Ames to face the 11th ranked Iowa State Cyclones. If you'll recall, last year, I really liked the Red Raiders. And you know what? I still like them. They're a very well-rounded team. I give Mark Adams a ton of credit for carrying on what Chris Beard started. Kevin Mccullar is having a really good season. He's averaging 13.5 points per game, just over 6 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists per game, and just over a steal and a half per game. No Terrence Shannon, though. He has a back injury. He hasn't played in a little bit. So it's going to be up to guys like Davion Warren and Bryson Williams to carry the load. I mean, those guys are good players. They're both averaging 11.3 points per game. Williams is a solid rebounder, can stretch the floor a little bit. Warren's a good guard, really good at getting into the passing lanes. Good penetrator. This is a good Red Raiders team. Meanwhile, you look at the Cyclones, they are led by one guy and one guy only. Isaiah Brockington, one of the best players in the nation. He's averaging 17 points per game, 8.4 rebounds per game, 1.5 assists per game, and 1.5 steals per game. Give TJ Otzelberger a ton of credit for working with this kid and unlocking his full potential. When Brockington was at Penn State, that's where he was last year, he was good, but not great. This year, he is great. And he has a couple good supporting pieces in Gabe Kalsher and Tyrese Hunter. You can count on them for 10 points a night. But more than that, they are fantastic steal getters. They're both averaging 2 steals per game. That's insane. ISU this year has the 8th best defense in the nation in terms of points against per game. They're only giving up 57.7 points per game this year. When Otzelberger was hired to take over for Steve Prohm, who had an absolutely terrible year last year. He went 2-22. He went 0 for 18 in the Big 12. It doesn't get much worse than that. The reaction among Cyclones fans was, oh, this is who we get? A guy who didn't even set the world on fire at UNLV? Otzelberger spent 3 years at South Dakota State. His first year there, the Jackrabbits won their conference championship. His second year there, they were the Summit League's regular season champions and conference tournament champions. His last year there, they were regular season champions, but North Dakota State won the conference championship. Then Otzelberger made the leap to the Mountain West Conference, a better conference. He went to UNLV, but with the Rebels, he went 17-15 his first year and 12-15 his second year. No one was going to mistake him for Jerry Tarkanian anytime soon. So he goes to ISU, a big jump, and now this guy looks like the second coming of Johnny Orr. Incredible hire by the Cyclones. This team is capable of doing special things in March. This is going to be a low-scoring game. But without Shannon, I don't see how the Red Raiders win. Give me the Cyclones. There were a couple deaths in the sports world yesterday that I want to talk about today. The first is the death of Jim Corsi. It was announced on January 3rd that he had stage 4 liver and colon cancer. He died the morning of January 4th at the age of 60. You think of the best middle relievers of the late 80s to late 90s. You probably think of guys like Jeff Innes, Terry Leach, Rich Garces, Rich Rodriguez, Dave Leiper, Don Paul, all good middle relievers. Jim Corsi was right up there. Yeah, this isn't the goalie coach who came up with the stupid hockey stat. This is the middle reliever. He was actually originally drafted by the Yankees in the 25th round of the 1982 draft. Toiled around in the minor leagues for the Yankees for a while. Ended up with the Red Sox. Bounced around in their minor league system. Then he ended up with the Athletics. And the Athletics gave him a chance. His first 2 years in the Bigs were 88 and 89. The Athletics made the World Series both years. In 88, obviously, they lost to the Dodgers in 5 games. In 89, they won the World Series, sweeping the Giants in the Earthquake Series. Corsi didn't pitch in the postseason in either one of those years. Corsi went to the Astros in the 91 season, pitched well, had a 3.71 ERA, went 0-5, which I don't like, but the ERA is good. He ended back up with the Athletics. In 92, he went 4-2 with a 1.43 ERA. The Athletics made the playoffs that year. They went up against the Blue Jays in the ALCS. They lost in 6 games. Corsi pitched in 3 games. Didn't give up a single run. Corsi was an original Marlin. Did not pitch well for them, but no one on that team played well. He ended back up with the Athletics in 95, had a 2.2 ERA. In 96, he went 6-0 with a 4.03 ERA. Then he signed with the Red Sox and became a big piece of their bullpen for the next couple seasons. In 97, he went 5-3 with a 3.43 ERA. The year after that, he went 3-2 with a 2.59 ERA. The Red Sox made the ALDS, but they lost to the Indians in 4 games. Corsi pitched in 2 games and was the only Red Sox to pitch in multiple games in that series while not giving up a single run. He finished his career in 99 with the Red Sox and Orioles. He went 1-3 with a 4.34 ERA. In his career, he went 22-24 with a 3.25 ERA and 290 strikeouts. Like I said, very good middle reliever. The second guy who sadly passed is Ross Browner. He died at the age of 67 from the coronavirus. Ross Browner is, without question, one of the greatest defensive players in college football history. Every honor you can think of, except the Heisman Trophy, this guy got. He went to Notre Dame and was incredibly dominant. In '76, he won the Outland Trophy, which is given to the best interior lineman in the nation. It can either be given to an offensive or defensive player. Browner won it as a defensive player. He also won UPI Lineman of the Year back when the UPI was heavily involved in college football. Again, both offensive and defensive linemen were eligible. And he was an All-American. The Irish went 9-3 that year. They faced Penn State in the Gator Bowl, winning 20-9. The year after that, Notre Dame went 11-1. Browner won the Maxwell Award, which is given to the best player in the nation by the Maxwell Football Club. It's still awarded today. He won the Lombardi Award. A lot of different criteria go into that award, but Browner won it. He was an All-American again, and he was UPI Lineman of the Year again. He is the only player in the history of that award to win it twice. Dame went up against Texas in the Cotton Bowl and absolutely destroyed the Longhorns 38-10. Thanks to a little help from a quarterback by the name of Joseph Clifford Montana Jr. Notre Dame was named national champions that year by the AP. Browner placed 5th in Heisman Trophy voting that year. And he was even on the cover of Sports Illustrated. You gotta wonder why it took 22 years for him to get into the College Football Hall of Fame. I don't know how long you need to wait to get into the College Football Hall of Fame, but Browner should have gotten in on the first ballot. He was picked 8th overall by the Bengals in the '78 draft. His first year with the Bengals, he had 8 sacks. He was voted team MVP. And he put together a nice little career with the Bengals. 5 years, he had at least 8 sacks. In '81, he had 10 sacks. The Bengals went 12-4 that year. They beat the Bills in the divisional round 28-21. Chris Collinsworth caught the game-winning touchdown in that game. They beat the Chargers in the AFC title game 27-7. But in Super Bowl 16, Browner went up against his old college quarterback in Montana, and Joe Cool won his first Super Bowl 26-21. Browner actually set a record in that Super Bowl for most tackles by a defensive lineman. The year after that, in the strike-shortened season, the Bengals went 7-2. They won the AFC Central. They went up against the Jets in the wild card round. But in a sentence that you don't get to say a lot, the Jets crushed them 44-17. In the final 3 quarters of that game, the Jets outscored the Bengals 41-3. Browner was named to the Bengals' 40th anniversary team in 2007. He had a good NFL career, there's no question about that, but he had a great college career. There's no question about it. He's one of the greatest defensive players in college football history. May Jim Corsi and Ross Browner both rest in peace. Until tomorrow, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.